Hey there, I'm Scott, and thanks so much for watching. Guys, it is cold and gray outside, and I thought I'd show you what I make on a really cold day, and it's my version of a beef stew. Stew meat's really inexpensive, but the catch there is you have to cook it low and slow for a period of time. This recipe I'm going to show you actually takes about 4 hours. The prep is really simple, and actually the active cooking time is short, but just you're going to want to know that you need to budget about 4 hours for it to actually cook all the way through to fruition to make the dish as good as it can be. I'm using beef short ribs today. These are boneless, and it's really the cut that I prefer for this. You absolutely could ask your butcher just for stew meat, which is typically cut into smaller chunks, but the beef short ribs are nice big portions that can go on the plate. I have 3 pounds here, which will feed 4 really hungry people, or 6, smaller size portions. What we want to do is salt and pepper this really well. So I'm going to put on probably, about 1.5 teaspoons of kosher salt or sea salt, and a good amount of ground pepper, black pepper. And do this fresh, don't buy that stuff that's already ground up at the store. So I'm going to do probably 2 teaspoons of ground pepper. It's going to go right on there. Perfect. And you will season this at the end as well with salt and pepper. So get in there with your tongs or your hands, whatever you prefer. If you are using your hands, make sure you wash them after you're done so you don't sort of cross-contaminate everything else in your kitchen. Just toss this around in those seasonings to get everything well coated. Okay, once you got all these coated with your salt and pepper, and by all means add more. If you feel like there's not enough coating everything, add a little bit more salt and pepper just to make sure it's well seasoned. If you watch my videos, you know I use the induction cooktop quite often, and it's a real good way to save energy. However, today we need to do some really high heat searing. So I have a cast iron piece of cookware back here. I'm going to go ahead and turn that on high heat and let that start to preheat. You want to use cast iron or something that's really going to hold up to a nice hot temperature, because we want to sear this beef and not just sort of make it turn gray and give off a lot of extra juice. While that's heating up, I want to talk to you about the other ingredients. Go to portlandcomfortfood.com and click on Chef's blog, and the recipe will be there on my blog if you don't have time to write all this down. We're going to braise this in root beer. And this is something you don't want to skip and buy sort of a cheap brand of root beer. Buy the best that you can find. This is a great one. It's called Crater Lake. It's made here in the Pacific Northwest, and it's really fantastic. And it's made with real cane syrup and no artificial sweeteners. I'm going to throw in about a cup of red wine. The red wine that you have on hand would work fine. And if you want to omit it completely, please do that. I also have on standby here about 2 cups of a really dark beef stock. We're going to add just enough to cover our braise, and I'll show you what that is when we get to it. So I'm going to step back here and we're going to start searing off our beef. Okay, our pot is really hot here, and that's exactly what we want. I'm going to take some canola oil, it could be vegetable oil, and add a little bit to the bottom of the pan. We don't want to fry this, we just want it nicely coating the bottom of our pot. We're going to let this come up just until it almost starts to smoke. Keep an eye on it. As soon as you start to see the very first bit of smoke coming up from your oil, grab one of your beef short ribs and put it in there and kind of move it around a little bit before you let it kind of sit still. You hear that sizzle? That's exactly what you want on this. If you're not hearing the sizzle, stop, pull the beef out, and let it get hotter. Alright, the first side of the beef is searing nicely. I'm going to let that sit for about 2 minutes or so, keeping an eye on it. Keep your pot and your tongs handy, because once we sear all sides of the beef, we're going to extract that before we add our vegetable mixture. I'm going to show you inside the pot here in just a second, but what I want to note is that we don't want to overcrowd this pot. So when you start adding your beef short ribs, if you don't have enough space, brown one batch the first time, take those out, and then put the other meat in so you get everything nicely seared. And I want to show you sort of what that looks like here in the light. It's a really great dark sear, almost crispy when you touch it. And that's absolutely what you're looking for. You don't want to turn the heat down here. Keep the heat as hot as you can. Don't worry, it's not going to burn. Just stay here with it. Once you get the first side of your short rib brown, go ahead and get in there with your tongue and start turning everything over onto the next side. If your short ribs are cut into cubes like this, You'll want to brown all 6 sides of the beef before we continue with this recipe. Make sure you take the time to brown it well. That's what's going to add the final flavor to this delicious dish. Alright, I've just gotten all the beef browned on all sides. It's looking really good. Nice and crispy deliciousness. The brown bits on the bottom are absolutely what you want to have happen. That's called the fond, or the foundation of flavor in French cooking technique. And that's going to add a really great flavor base to the final dish. So I'm going to pull out all these beef ribs. Perfect. Leave the temperature pretty hot. And I'm going to grab our onions, celery, and carrot. Dump that in. And if you had a little bit too much fat in your pot, like more than a couple of tablespoons, you could strain some of that out before adding the vegetables. We're going to add that right in. We're going to add our mushrooms. And let this go for a few minutes. We just want to start to soften it. I like to let the vegetables and the mushrooms go about 2 minutes on a really high heat. After about 2 minutes, and you start to see things tender up just a little bit, turn this down to a medium-high, just between medium-high on your gas stove or electric. Now we want to add our garlic. Goes right in. And our bunch of the herbs, the fresh herbs, the rosemary, thyme, and bay leaf. That's going to be perfect. We're going to cook this about 7 to 10 minutes over our medium-high flame. If it starts to brown too much, we do want it to caramelize, but we don't want it to burn, obviously. If it does, just turn down the heat just a little bit. Like I said earlier, this recipe will be available on my blog. You can find that at portlandcomfortfood.com. We specialize in all kind of great, delicious comfort foods regionally from around the world and bring those to people's homes right here in the Portland area, but also out on the Oregon coast. We do catering and private events. It's really fun, and if you're in this area and you have a desire to have me cater something, please let us know. You can contact me through our website. So I'm going to keep turning this around, keeping an eye on it. Let it go 7 to 10 minutes and I'll be back. All right, it's been about 10 minutes. I just wanted to show you the bottom of the pan here is dry, and that's really important. If you start to see a lot of liquid coming out of your vegetables, turn the heat back up and kind of make an open area to let that evaporation happen, because you don't want a lot of extra water in the bottom because you're not going to develop the flavor that you need. So now that this has happened, we're going to be able to add our dry spices that I mentioned earlier, the cumin, the star anise, and the red pepper flakes. You're going to want to pull the star anise out, obviously, before you serve this. And you should always add your dry spices to an oil-based substance. It's called blooming your spices, and it helps impart that flavor throughout the dish, which wouldn't happen if you added this into a liquid-based something like a soup that had a stock in it. So I'm going to let those dry spices sort of heat up a little bit, about a minute or so, keeping everything moving around. And then we'll come back and we'll add our beef. Perfect. Our spices have heated up. Now I'm going to add our wine to that. Like I said, about a cup. If you don't have the wine, completely omit it. That's okay. Give that a stir around. Let this cook for about another minute, and then we'll add our root beer. Okay, the wine's cooked about a minute. We're going to take our beef and add that in, just sort of nestle it down into your vegetable mixture there. And there will be some juice that's accumulated in the bottom. By all means, do not throw that away. We're going to want to add that to our pot as well. Right over the top of that. Great. Now we can add our root beer. This is 12 ounces of root beer. If you're pouring it out of a larger container, about 2 cups would be great. Move everything around. Now we're going to want to add beef stock, and I've measured out 2 cups. I'm just going to pour enough in there to almost cover our beef. We want it kind of peeking out just slightly, just like that. So 2 cups in this pot. Works great. Now I'm going to turn this heat off, and I'm going to move our pot over to the induction cooker. Alright, we have this on induction. I like to use this because it uses 70% less energy than gas or electric cooktops do. And it's a nice investment. You can usually pick them up for a couple of $100s. And they do actually save quite a bit on your energy cost. You want to bring your mixture just up to a boil like it was on the stove. Once you start to see a lot of bubbles, turn your cooktop down, whether you're doing this on gas, electric, or induction, until you just see little bubbles. Simmering is what you're going to want to do. Take the lid and cover this and set your timer for 3 hours. We're going to cook this for 3 hours, come back, remove the lid, and let our sauce reduce. One thing I did want to mention is you could make this more of a fine dining presentation by not cutting your vegetables so small, leaving them larger. Doing the process just like I've showed you here, but at the end you'll take the beef out, strain the sauce through a chinois or a sieve, and serve that sort of over in more of a fine dining type presentation. I like to serve it family style. I'm doing it tonight, served over buttered whole grain egg noodles, which is delicious. It also goes great over polenta or mashed potatoes. Anyway, we'll be back in 3 hours to show you how to finish this up. Alright, it's been just 3 hours. I'm going to go in here and take the lid off. And again, I've had this just at a simmer, so really low on your gas or electric cooktop. You're going to check with the fork and your tongs. You want the meat to just start to pull apart, and this is doing exactly what that needs to do. So leave that alone, let it stay together. While you have the lid off, go ahead and start pulling out all of the herbs. At this point, they've given off everything they're going to give to the dish. Try to find your 2-star anise and get those out of here. Any leaves, large bay leaves, for example, that have fallen off the stem, go ahead and pull those out. Fish out that last star anise. In the meantime, what I'm going to do is just turn the heat up slightly, and I'm going to leave the lid off now for about an hour, hour and a half, because we want to start to evaporate this sauce down so it becomes really nice and thick. So I'm going to let this go for about an hour. We'll come back and I'll show you the finished dish. Okay, we've just finished that last hour of letting it simmer with the lid off. And you can see here that the sauce has gotten nice and thick. All the vegetables are still there and looking really good, and our beef is really tender. So I'm not serving dinner for a couple more hours, but I did want to pull out a little taste of this and show you guys what it's all about. Look at this beef. It's so tender. You just squeeze it with the tongs and it just starts to fall apart, which is exactly what you want to have happen. Grab a little bit of that sauce right over the top. And I like really finely chopped parsley just to bring out a little bit of green on the plate. I'm going to grab a fork and I'll give this a taste. So I got my fork. It's so nice. It's fork tender. You can just pick it right up with, oh my gosh. You guys, this is absolutely something you want to make. It's really soul satisfying and hearty. And like I said earlier, the actual active cooking time with you standing by the pot isn't that long, probably 30 minutes. It braises for 3 hours with the lid on, another hour with the lid off. What's not great about that, it fills the house with a wonderful scent, and when your guests arrive, they know they're in for something really, really special. I'm going to serve this over buttered egg noodles. Absolutely delicious, but like I said, mashed potatoes or polenta is another great option there. Thanks so much for watching. Get the recipe on my blog at portlandcomfortfood.com. Just click on Chef's blog there. You can also follow us on Twitter at Scott Hargrove and Portland Comfort Food on Facebook. Guys, thanks so much for watching. Have a great day. Bye.